Recording in progress.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the How to Build a TikTok SEO Strategy, hosted by myself, Amanda, and Elena from Kaizen. So thank you all for joining. We'll kick off now. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm Amanda. I'm the social media lead at Kaizen, and I'm hosting this webinar with Elena.
Hi everyone, I'm Elena, and I'm an SEO account executive here at Caton.
Amazing. Just a quick intro into who Kaizen is before we get into how to build your TikTok SEO strategy, which is what you're all here to learn about. But Kaizen is a digital marketing agency. Despite the accent, we are based in London and we're based in the UK. But we've been around since 2013 with the ethos of constantly improving and always kind of evolving and optimizing. For those of you who don't know, Kaizen is a Japanese mindset, which we were founded on, which means kind of continuous improvement. So that's one of the reasons why we love to host webinars and roundtables and things like that, just to kind of talk through um, new things that are happening in the industry and kind of share knowledge with you guys here today. But yeah, as excuse me, as part of our services at Kaizen, we have a breadth of different things that we kind of focus on, from search to PR to AI and LLMs, as well as social. So TikTok SEO is a beautiful marriage between social, which I do, and SEO, which Elena works on. We work with a lot of different clients in a ton of different verticals, all from scale ups to household names. So, scale ups such as Strawberry Shortcake and Bella and Duke, to household names such as Lego, Adidas, Compare the Market, Monzo, things like that. Amazing. Let's kick off. So, as we all know, TikTok is increasingly used as a search engine, specifically for younger audiences. And it's really kind of focusing on being a discovery platform for early stage research. So we conducted a survey as well as kind of used some stats from an Adobe consumer survey to kind of pull these things together. So 64% of Gen Z have used TikTok as a search engine, 34% have searched for or discovered a brand on the platform, and 61% of Gen Z open the app at least once a day. If you're like me, it's a lot more than at least once a day. But something that is really interesting, and I think kind of a bit self-explanatory, is that there is a huge generational split when it comes to who's using TikTok and who is using it for search. So this is data that came from our survey that we ran in-house, where, as you can see here, there's a large proportion of the people who are using TikTok as a search engine are within that millennial and Gen Z category, whereas baby boomers and Gen X, it's significantly lower. But why this is something that's so interesting, even if Gen Z isn't your target audience right now, within the next 5 years, Gen Z will have over $450 billion in worldwide income, and that means $450 billion in spending power. So though Gen Z might not be your target audience right now, I think the kind of tail or top end of Gen Z is 27, 28 years old. They will soon be entering their 30s, who might be more within your target audience. So it's really important to kind of get ahead of the curve and learn how to market towards those individuals on the platforms that they're in. When it comes to different industries, there's a little bit of a split when it comes to kind of who's using TikTok and who's using still traditional search or Reddit or ChatGPT and other LLM platforms. But specifically, fashion and beauty and food and drink, TikTok is the leading platforms. This is across generations, whereas travel and home and garden still kind of lean towards Google. Tech and gadgets is on Reddit. And then finance, investing, and automotive, ChatGPT is kind of the leading discovery platform for different brands. But what's really interesting about TikTok is that it's not only just kind of a top of funnel platform, especially with the rise of TikTok Shop over the last couple of years. You really can hit someone at every single part of the funnel now, especially if you're an e-commerce brand. So it's really important to kind of understand why your audience is using the platform for what part of their journey. From our own research, 41% of consumers say they use TikTok more to discover brands than they did 12 months ago. 37% expect to increase their use of TikTok for brand discovery. So that's really top of funnel. But research is growing as well, with 43% using TikTok to research brands and products, and 35% expecting that to increase. And then lastly, when it comes to bottom funnel and conversion, 42% are using TikTok Shop more to purchase. 35% expect that to increase their use of TikTok Shop within the next 12 months. Also, a significant portion of the people that we've researched say that they believe that TikTok Shop will rival Amazon within the next 5 years. So TikTok is really kind of a full funnel e-commerce engine. And it's really important that we know how to market appropriately and get people or get our content and our products or services in front of the right people. TikTok also leads in terms of the recommendation-led discovery. So what's really interesting is that what's so interesting about the TikTok algorithm is that it's a little bit different than Google. You go to Google when you already kind of have a query in mind, you're looking for a specific search, you're looking for information. So as you can see on the graph on the left-hand side, Google and AI search tools are really kind of the leading engines when it comes to you're trying to get information. But TikTok and other, TikTok Shop, as well as Instagram and YouTube and other social platforms actually lead when it comes to recommendations. And this is really important for us to look at because when it comes to the algorithm, the TikTok algorithm feeds you products before you even know that you want them. So before you even have a query to actually search, it's already feeding you products that you might want to buy. And so it's really important for us to know how to recommend things so that the algorithm picks that up and feeds it on the For You page. When it comes to the most popular queries of what people are looking for when they're using TikTok, there's a pretty large split. As you can see, a lot of it is that recommendation base. So new recipes, new music, fashion advice, workout routines, beauty advice, product recommendations, new products and services, all of those things really lead towards that recommendation piece of I'm looking for a product that answers this problem that I'm already having versus trying to be a bit more research-led or informative where someone might turn towards a LLM or a traditional search platform such as Google. TikTok SEO rewards content that answers questions really clearly and then proves it through that engagement. So there's kind of three different kind of structures here. So first is that query intent. So it's like the how do I, what's best, should I try? Then it's content structure, such as spoken keywords in the first few sentences, on-screen text that matches the query exactly, and then the early engagement. So this looks at watch time, saves, comments in the first 48 hours, etc. We have a really great optimization structure that Elena will go through in a little bit that kind of deep dives into these three different portions. But not only is TikTok really used for search, but at its core, TikTok brands itself as an entertainment platform. So other, social media sites such as Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, but they are social media platforms, whereas TikTok is an entertainment platform. So it's really important that, yes, we're trying to capture search and learn how to get in front of the right audiences. But at the same time, that entertainment factor is such a key part of it. Otherwise, your content is just going to flop. So it's important to balance those two things. So search, there's that active intent. People are looking for how-to and advice. They're looking for comparisons, recommendations, and it's really optimized for decisions. People who are already knowing, they're at that stage of purchase where they're looking for something that is specific to a problem that they're trying to solve. And then there's the entertainment side of the platform. So this looks at people who are passively scrolling, more top of funnel, people who are trying to see or kind of stumble across something that they didn't even know that they wanted to buy, and now they do. It's also very trend and creator led. that this type of content is really optimized for watch time and retention. And then lastly, it's For You page discovery. Again, what's really interesting about TikTok compared to other social media platforms is that TikTok is led through you open up to the For You page rather than being towards your followers or your feed or anything like that. So it really is an engine that is trying to push out new, entertaining, and engaging content through the For You page. So that entertainment factor can't go away, even when you're thinking about how to create content specifically for search. So now to get into the nitty-gritty of how do you actually build your TikTok SEO strategy. Um, First off, we're going to be doing a kind of case study about The Ordinary all throughout this. So it'll be a bit skincare focused. But The Ordinary, if you don't know, is this really amazing skincare brand that a global skincare brand that is at a really reasonable price point. Most products are kind of underneath the 15-pound mark. But kind of the first step when it comes to TikTok SEO is looking at your actual account itself. And why that's really important when you're setting up your profile, looking at what your name is, what your ad is, and what is in your bio is because it signals account authority. Not only when people are searching for when they're actually using the search tool in TikTok, they get fed content, they get fed things from TikTok Shop, but they also get fed platforms or yeah, profiles, excuse me. So it's really important that the keywords and in your bio are really relevant to you. Sometimes you might have a tagline, but it might be better to consider, more optimized tagline in your bio. It's also used for discoverability. And then lastly, when it comes to your actual account, is posting consistency and cadence. So TikTok loves people who post a lot. It loves to reward you for consistency and posting sometimes multiple times a day. Not all of us have time for that. But it's really important to just be consistent. If you only have resource or the time or the skill set within in-house to be posting twice a week, one time a week, that's fine as long as you're doing it consistently. TikTok will kind of deprioritize you if you take a long break from posting and then you start up again. You're kind of starting from square one in the platform's eyes, which you don't want to kind of lose that momentum. So it's really important to have that consistency.
So in terms of the process we want to kind of take to create the TikTok strategy, we've broken this down into three different pillars. So there's the research part, which is obviously the keyword research as well as the competitor research, so finding out what competitors are doing, and then the implementation. So for this, we want to, based on that competitor research, see any kind of techniques as well as like TikTok best practices and what they recommend. And then measurement. So I'll be going through some tools, and Amanda will as well, about how to measure with tools as well as manually through the app. And as you can see here, this is a feedback loop, not a linear process. So obviously we want to be constantly kind of going back to this process and optimizing, reposting, rather than just kind of doing it once and kind of giving up. Like Amanda mentioned, it's, a constant process, and TikTok wants to be, seeing that your brand is uploading content regularly. So this is a process to kind of take up and optimize. And like I say, just use throughout. So in terms of the keyword research, we've identified two key tools here, or two key kind of methods to do this. So here we have the TikTok Ads Manager, which is a very useful tool for like your initial research, figuring out that kind of perhaps that primary keyword. And also is really handy because it provides a wide range of metrics. So it kind of takes up a similar format to perhaps like SEMrush and Ahrefs, in the sense that it has, your search volume and key metrics like that you might want to kind of look at. But obviously it's not as extensive as those tools. So it's just kind of like a starting point. And then to support that, kind of alongside that method, we've got the in-app research. So this is kind of heading straight into TikTok and using that as a tool to figure out your like keywords. And this is really great in terms of building out keywords, and getting that keyword cluster together to support that primary keyword. So here I have a short demo to show you guys. So for TikTok Ads Manager, you can create a free account really easily and really quickly. If you just head over to TikTok Ads Manager, and if you head over to Tools and Keyword Planner, you can then go to the search bar function and just input your keyword. So in this case, I'm just putting the ordinary in. And then if you have a look, you've instantly got a range of metrics. So here we have 11 keywords that range between 10 to 25K search volume. And yeah, as we can see here, we've got some really useful metrics, which if you hover over, you can have a look, find out more kind of what they're about and what they mean. And yeah, and if you just scroll down, you can see just your keyword list, figure out if there's any kind of interest there that you might want to include. And now here I'm just highlighting and pasting more keywords just to build out my list. And you can also just type in yourself any keywords that come to mind and see if they're ranking. So yeah, this is just a really handy tool to start your kind of initial research, get some metrics, get some ideas of what the search volume is looking at for those words. Obviously, the list isn't super extensive. Here we have around 12, but depending on your keyword, you might have more or less. And you can go over there to up to 80 keywords. So you can build up quite an extensive list. And then looking at the in-app research. So this is directly on TikTok. So if you head over to the search bar, again, just type in your keyword that you want to look at. And there instantly, we've got a list of frequently searched for suggestions that we can use. But then if you click enter, and on the desktop, you can have it on the right-hand side. But on the mobile version, you have to scroll down a bit. But yeah, you'll have another kind of list of what others have searched for, which is really, really handy. And here I'm just highlighting the hyaluronic acid example, just to kind of do a bit of a deep dive on a specific product and demonstrate. But yeah, I've just inputted that in. And again, I've got more examples of how I can build out that keyword. And then if you go ahead and like say, click on one of the like content creator videos or brand videos, you can see like a good example of how to include those keywords into your content. So in terms of the key TikTok SEO placement areas, so these are kind of the 4 pillars, say, for your placement of your keyword. And this goes in descending order. So this is what TikTok and the algorithm prioritizes. So first and most importantly is your spoken keywords. This needs to be within the first 3 seconds. So you want to include that primary keyword right at the start, but most importantly, in a spoken format, because this is as TikTok auto transcribes your video. So it might seem a bit odd, like, oh, why isn't it not written down? But the algorithm actually auto transcribes the video. So it's really important that it can rank your content in those first 3 seconds. So yeah, just make sure you include your keyword over on that one. And then secondly is the on-screen text phrase with the exact phrase. So the on-screen text reinforces your topic and also strengthens your search visibility for that specific phrase. So again, it's just kind of supporting the spoken keyword, and it's just a really clear way to include that keyword instantly. Then in terms of captions in third place, so we want to include that within the first 100 characters. Because TikTok prioritizes early caption when it's indexing the content. So it's really important that, again, you're including that keyword really early on. And finally, hashtags. So it's really important not to use this method to replace it, as many people tend to include a lot of their keywords in hashtags. However, as I mentioned, these are just to support your content, but it shouldn't kind of take over, as TikTok prioritizes the previous methods, the on-screen and the captions, as well as the spoken keyword.
Amazing. And going beyond kind of those SEO placements, engagement, as I mentioned prior, is actually really important. So going beyond kind of keyword relevance, TikTok also factors in the engagement velocity of your content, and it's split into 2 kind of categories. The first is pure engagement, And the second is watch time and content retention. So it looks at shares, saves, comments, and likes, reposts as well. When it comes to whether it's going to push your content out, not only on the For You page, but also when it comes to indexing for search. So it's looking at whether your content is engaging to your audiences. And then it's also looking at how long your viewers are staying on your content. So not only are they viewing it once, are they rewatching it? What's the view through rate after 3 seconds? And then what's the view through rate and completion rate in general? Rewatches are kind of something that's really important when it comes to the weighting of kind of watch time. So that's why you see quite a lot of content on the platform that have kind of a seamless transition from end to beginning, because that'll kind of count as a rewatch when someone starts to begin your content again. Elena will talk about some tricks and things like that later on about when it comes to how to kind of incorporate these things into your content strategy.
Yeah, so now moving on from like the keyword research, we go on to the competitor research, which in this case, we've identified 5 relevant competitors for The Ordinary. So we're going to be looking at Elf, Nivea, CeraVe, La Roche-Posay, and Drunk Elephant. So first of all is looking at hook length and style. So CeraVe do a really good job of this, using words like stop for the hooks and doing keeping to that 3-second hook length, which is recommended for this. So some top tips is using problem-based or query style keywords. So we want to be like a kind of question format, as TikTok is quite kind of like an informal search engine. It's not like Google. People tend to type it in as like a question or like a problem. So it's really important to target it that way. And also using a bold opinion opener whilst targeting that primary keyword naturally. So yeah, like I said, you've got to keep it short and snappy. 3-second hook is the recommendation here. And then for video length and style, so we recommend between 15 to 30 seconds. And Drunk Elephant is a really good example of this, as they keep the videos really short and also keep it to one clear message whilst targeting, that primary keyword cluster. And also something to note here is keeping to the search intent, because that's really important in terms of engagement as well as conversion rates. And then finally, the loop-friendly ending. So this is just something nice to include to keep that engagement rate, and also just something that's being very common at the moment. So this is also very recommended as long alongside that 15 to 30-second length. So the text on screen. So this is kind of like your live captioning. So this we recommend to keep to 3 to 7 words per slide. So here we have a good example from Nivea, and they do a really good job of including the text on screen and also keeping it to that recommended length. And also it's important to include and repeat the keyword naturally within that script. And also, like a little top tip or something might be useful using is highlighting the keyword within the text on screen. And then moving on to captions. So here we have a great example from Elf. And they mentioned their keyword as early as possible. So that they have vitamin C plus E fluoric acid. And here it's really good to keep it to around 2 to 3 sentences long. So obviously not too long, but also considering tips like don't keyword stuff just because you can. Just put a load of keywords in there doesn't mean you should. So try and keep it to, initially your primary keyword, and then maybe include some secondary keywords in there too, maybe 1 or 2. And then also, again, ensuring we match the search intent. So this is shown really well here by Elf. So they've included like the price point there, $16, and also made a call out to, saying it's available now. So yeah, just really good example there from Elf. And then finally, hashtags. So as I said, this is to support, not replace the other content strategies. And this should be between 3 to 5 hashtags total. So you want to be including a branded keyword hashtag like La Roche-Posay has done there. Also, something interesting to consider is perhaps including a talk or kind of finding your talk micro community within TikTok. In this case, it's skin talk, but it might be like book talk, mom talk. And this just helps you kind of target your community and kind of find your niche within that. Also, something good to know is that TikTok likes if you reuse the same hashtags for different posts, as this shows kind of consistency and it's able to categorize your content better within its algorithm. And however, something to note here is that you don't want to be reusing generic hashtags all the time, or just using generic hashtags, I should say, all the time, because you need to also have some niche hashtags mixed into the mix. So here we have like ethically, acne prone skin, so something like specific to that post. Because if you only put generic hashtags, then the competition is going to be really hard, and you're not going to kind of be appearing. So it's really important to kind of have that balance, include some niche hashtags to kind of stand out within the market.
Sorry, I muted myself. Amazing. So after we do all that competitor research, then obviously we want to start the content creation process. So this is kind of our tried and tested approach to content creation. The first is a kind of search-led ideation, so looking for evergreen search-led content to create content about. The second is the creative execution, making sure that it's structured specifically for search. Then we have an optimization loop that Elena will run through in a bit to kind of iterate and scale that content to make sure that it's optimized based off of learnings, and then to, measure the success of the content. So the first kind of step when it comes to search-led ideation is to go beyond keywords. So obviously we've already done all that competitor research. We've already done all of our keyword research. So it's important to look at or look outside of that research that we've done and see what are TikTok search suggestions. What does TikTok recommend for people also search? What kind of questions or queries are people suggesting in your competitor comment section, or within influencer and creator content on the platform? Something else that we look at is search suggestions on competitor content. What's that, blue comment that people have, or what is it saying, suggesting to search? Because then that kind of indicates to us that there's a opportunity there for, answering that specific query. So this is kind of our first step, is that we look at the keywords that we have, and then we also do some additional analysis on what kinds of questions people are asking, or what pain points do people have that they're sharing in their competitors, and then how can we create content that answers those queries or answers those pain points. So then we identify content themes. So we look at problem solution queries, we look at comparison questions, we think about how-tos or product and service reviews, and then also we look at trend and search opportunities. So how can we create content that utilizes trends or a cultural moment, and then optimize it for search? And then we structure our content specifically for search. So as Elena was mentioning before, when it comes to the hook and how we want to kind of structure your content, these are some examples of things that we kind of look at. So this is here's how you do XYZ, or the best moisturizer for oily skin. Is this product actually worth it? If you want to try this, you really need to be doing XYZ. So we structure that content in a very social first way that answers the, problem, query, pain point that people have within a hook that TikTok will recognize and really like, but that includes those keywords in the first 3 seconds to really optimize it for search. Oops. Here's a really good example of this is a creator who created this content, but creative execution is really key to the success of content. So you could do all of the research in the world, but then if you create a piece of content that isn't really interesting or engaging or using what you learned, then at the end of the day, it still probably won't perform really well. So this is something that this example that we pulled forward was from a creator who was creating a piece of content about a skin routine for clogged pores. So this screenshot of this graph is from Creator Search Insights, which is a TikTok specific tool that you can use. We'll go into it a little bit later on about whether we would or wouldn't recommend kind of using it. But this creator created a piece of content about a step-by-step skincare routine specifically for clogged pores. So this uses the keyword clogged pores skin routine. It uses a hook using the exact kind of keyword phrase in the first 3 seconds. There's no sound here, but she actually speaks it out loud. So the keyword is not only on text, but she also says it out loud. There's a very clear value proposition early. So she's showing you exactly what or telling you exactly what you're going to get out of it by including all of these screenshots of different skincare products. But something else that she does is she shows proof. So this is a skincare routine for clogged pores. She shows a before and after photo of how her skin looked prior to starting the skincare routine to how it looks now, beautiful, glowing, not a clogged pore in sight. So this kind of, obviously this example is for skincare, but this kind of value proposition, keyword, and proof is something that we would really recommend doing no matter your vertical. We also have a publishing strategy to see best results as well. So the first is the research phase. So when we're kind of creating that content, we create keyword clusters that we want to test each month. So we begin with 2 to 3 keyword clusters surrounding different queries or products, including, a few different kind of um, variations of those keywords. We then try to create at least 3 to 5 video per keyword cluster per month. And then within those videos, we are testing different hooks, different video links, different formats. So that could be a trend X search piece of content. It could be a longer form piece of content. It could be a carousel versus a video. So we're testing out a lot of different things within those kind of individualized keyword clusters. And then lastly, once we are testing all of our different hooks, video links, and formats, we then repost optimized versions of the asset with a new variant to see if it performs better.
So yeah, based on that, now looking at the optimization loop. So we've done our research, our keyword research, our competitor research, and then Amanda's run through content publishing as well. So now going on to kind of measurements. So tracking, search views, tracking comment percentages, like how much people are engaging with your content. And based on that measurement, you then identify what kind of results are low, and like based on that you can then identify what you can improve upon. So say you need to refine your keyword placement because your content isn't ranking for that keyword, or it's not ranking as high as you would like it to. So then you could look into kind of refining that keyword placement. Or perhaps you need to fix the hook because people are dropping off too quickly, they're scrolling past. So you need to look into perhaps that angle. And then also another example is perhaps increasing your engagement CTA. So people are perhaps not engaging with the content, they're not commenting, they're not clicking on the link. So that would be kind of the solution and the action to take. And then finally, based on all that, so once you've identified your metrics, your results, and identified the issues you need to fix, you can then repost the improved kind of version. And by this, we don't mean to repost the same content again. We mean to basically what we mean is to repost another like brand new piece of content based on all those improvements. But it could still be targeting the keyword cluster. And it could be like a similar kind of add-on to that content, but it's, like I say, a brand new piece of content rather than the same content optimized again.
Amazing. When it comes to kind of a content structure and how we would recommend kind of prioritizing your content, we always suggest kind of a 50-30-20 split. This can vary depending on your brand and also what your goal is for TikTok as well. But we suggest 50% should be evergreen search-led content. So these are things where you're using your SEO, TikTok SEO strategy, and you're creating content within this optimization loop specifically to try and drive search, or drive views through search to your profile, to your TikTok shop, etc. 30% should be trend-led content. This is usually very like easy lift content, and should be more reactive. And then 20% should be trial and error, test and learn. So things that you might not have tried before, or things that you're testing a new hook, you're testing a new content format, you're testing whether creator-led content or UGC might work for your brand. Something that we also kind of always suggest as well when it comes to creating our content in general, kind of as an ethos, we always recommend that your content should either be informative, entertaining, or divisive. And as you can kind of see, that kind of sits between the evergreen, trend, and trial. Evergreen should be more informative, and that doesn't mean that evergreen isn't entertaining or divisive, but it should be more informative led. You're getting kind of a value proposition out of it. Then for the entertaining content, that's that more trend led. Again, all of the content on TikTok should always be entertaining because it's an entertainment platform. But these are things that are like very trend led, very top of funnel. And then lastly, that divisive, that can be that maybe a bit rage baity, you're trying to provoke comments, things like that. And that's kind of sits within that trial, that divisive kind of content pillar. Here's some examples of some evergreen content formats for search. So these are all examples from The Ordinary. So this looks at tutorials, it looks at product specific deep dives, it looks at FAQs, it looks at myth busting, and it also looks at comparison. So comparison content doesn't always have to be your product versus a competitor's product. It also can be your product versus another one of your product and like who each of these things kind of target. The myth busting one, again, there's no sounds here, but this myth busting one uses a trending audio. So this is a really great example of trend X search content, where they're kind of myth busting things about their product, but are also using really like social first kind of content formats.
So obviously we understand it can be quite hard to find that balance between social first and search first scripts. So here we have an example of how you can do that with AI. So we've created a prompt, and we basically give the AI the goal, the target audience, and things like length, as well as kind of the list of keywords that we want for that post and how to deliver this piece. And then the output, we've tested it out a few times, and the output is quite successful. So it gives us like a really nice script there, keeping to the time frame, and including kind of naturally those keywords throughout the text, and especially at the start. And also it includes a caption suggestion as well as some hashtag suggestions, which are really handy to have. So this is a really great starting point, especially when you're like, starting with like a blank page and you don't know where to go with this. It just really kind of helps you to embed those keywords naturally. So yeah, if you're interested in trying out our prompt, feel free to do so via this QR code. So yeah, just go ahead and scan. We'll give you guys a second, obviously.
I'll stay on it for a bit. Yeah, the script prompt is really great, as Elena mentioned, for like a starting point. Obviously, human voice, human led is always really important when it comes to entertaining and content performance. But it's a really great place to kind of realize, okay, like how do I, when you're, sometimes it's difficult to create an entertaining prompt when you're trying to fit a keyword specifically into it. Because you're like, how do I say that naturally? So having this prompt as a starting point is something that we use to then iterate on and be like, okay, how do I say this better? How do we make it a bit more human? Add in something that our audience would really enjoy, things like that. But it's always a really great starting point. All right, I'm going to move on now. Amazing. So as I mentioned before, Creator Search Insights is a TikTok specific kind of tool that you can use. And it really does help when it comes to kind of finding that trend-led content that can be optimized for search. So these are some screenshots and some screen shares of looking at The Ordinary. Why it's something that we didn't kind of suggest when it comes to your keyword research in the beginning is that it can be quite limited. So, unlike other SEO tools or research tools that you might have used in the past, it doesn't give you every single query possible. So, when you look up the ordinary isn't actually even an option, even though it's a very popular skincare tool. But it does give you suggestions based off of kind of what people are searching using the keyword ordinary. There's a very popular song has been going viral for the last couple of months from an artist called Alex Warren that's also has the word ordinary in it. So there's a bit of a mix here when it comes to what the suggestions are. But what it is really great about it is that you can kind of see the trajectory of where the search is kind of peaking or whether it's kind of on a downturn or an upturn. So I use the example of the ordinary SPF 45. That's always a good one. So you can see the search popularity globally. You can also see it for your specific region. So you can look at just the UK. You can also look at what the trajectory is of search over, I think it goes back up to the last 90 days. So you can kind of see whether it's on an upwards turn or a downwards turn, and then you can decide, okay, like if we're kind of at the beginning stages of an upwards turn, let's capitalize on this and make content from it. You can also look at demographic details, so who's searching and where are they from. And then it also gives you related videos and related topics. So this is always a good place to see like, okay, who's posting what about this? And in the third screenshot, what I think is something interesting to call out is that the related videos aren't always the ones that have the highest view count, but it is what TikTok has deemed most kind of related to that search. So the first one, as you can see, only got like 619 likes. The second one, I think that's like 9,673. Then the third got, tens of thousands. So it's just kind of an interesting kind of point of that for search specific content. Like TikTok ranks different things. Watch time is really important, but it also is looking at keyword, product, proof, etc. Looking at the related topics is also something really interesting because people will look at, okay, not only the ordinary SPF, but also SPF and then makeup compatibility or serum benefits or those kinds of things. And then lastly, something that TikTok gives you is an AI outline. So it suggests hashtags, what your hook should be in a script. So similar to kind of our tool, but it's from, TikTok itself. The reason why we kind of like our ChatGPT prompt over this is because it offers the same AI outline to every single user. So if you create something with this script, you might be one of thousands using that. But it also gives you, other topics to explore and those kinds of things. So it's an interesting kind of place to complement other keyword research that you've done and other trend analysis that you've done. But we wouldn't say that this or Creator Search Insights is like the end all be all, first point that you should be looking at or the last. As we mentioned before, search and trends is something that is a great tool. This could be trending sound. This could be looking at social first content styles. It could also be using social first language, such as POV. Also here for the ordinary, they just use the U instead of YOU. So it's a bit more casual, a bit more trend led. As an ethos, I'm trying to get us to all move away from POV as I think it's a bit oversaturated. So let's figure out something else that we could use instead of POV content, but it is something that works well. It is easily recognizable by users on the app. Everyone knows what POV means.
So yeah, then looking at those key metrics and what we want to be measuring. We've divided this into two different sectors. So we've got search performance metrics, and then we've got the search visibility metrics. So for performance-based metrics, we want to be looking at watch time from search. So are people watching like the full video length, or are they watching only the start? Average retention rate. So are they kind of staying on until the end, like I mentioned earlier? Completion rate percentage, and also then looking at saves, shares, and follows from search users. And then moving on to the visibility side of metrics. So we want to be looking at tracking the impressions as well as the keyword rankings. And then also measuring search traffic share and CTR rate. And then also looking at reviewing profile visits from search and analyzing search appearances frequency. So here's a dashboard that we created for the ordinary. And it's really great because as we showed you guys earlier, there's a lot of kind of tools you can use, but it's really useful to have it kind of all in one handy, hassle-free place where you can find all your metrics. And this is a service that we can offer for you guys if you're interested in creating one for your brand. As it's really useful. Like I said, it's got a range of metrics. You can even look at competitors and kind of rank yourself against your competitors in TikTok.
Amazing. And then lastly, just some tool recommendations for what to use. Hootsuite, Sprout Social are really amazing, kind of best in class platforms when it comes to scheduling, posting, social listening, all of the stuff. And then keywordtool.io is a really great tool to kind of start again in terms of just using some outside information for TikTok specific keywords. Again, it looks at global data, it looks at specific regions as well. And then lastly, just some do's and don'ts. I'll go through the do's and then Elena will go through the don'ts. But some kind of quick little tips and tricks. As we mentioned before, lead with the exact keyword phrase, speak and show the keyword or query phrase on text on screen and in your captions. Focus on search intent. So think about what types of queries people are asking. Optimize your content for retention and watch time. And then lastly, track, iterate, and repost optimized versions.
So for the don'ts, as I mentioned earlier, don't rely on hashtags alone. Use the other kind of key supporting content ideas. Don't overscript and keyword stuff. So we've covered that, and we've also come up with the prompt as a little help for that. Don't sacrifice engagement and ignore TikTok success metrics. So as we've said, we want to be focusing on the entertainment side of things. So, at the end of the day, TikTok is entertainment first platform. So don't sacrifice that. And also don't chase every trend. It might not be relevant to your brand. And it's important to kind of create your own content there. It's not always handy to chase every single trend. And don't publish once and move on. So as Amanda mentioned, it's important to be really consistent with TikTok. That's what the algorithm likes. So, if you've got a range of like a list of keywords or like a cluster that you want to use for like a specific service or product, make sure you do, about like 3 to 5 pieces on that content rather than just do one and move on instantly.
Amazing. As Elena mentioned, we have a proprietary dashboard that we've created. If anyone is interested in speaking to us, you can scan this QR code to register your interest on creating or us creating a TikTok SEO opportunity dashboard for you guys. So feel free to if you would like. We have a couple of minutes for any questions. Please use the Q&A function or the chat. Someone has already asked whether or not we can share the recording, which we definitely will share around for everyone. So no worries if you were a little bit late. We can absolutely do that. But yes, no worries regarding that. Let us know if you guys have any questions at all.
Um, I'm just going to add a really interesting question that was asked in the sort of in-person version of this event was about how to rank on AI and especially like AI overviews. So if you want your TikTok to appear on those, it's really important to use query-based style keywords and answer queries. And also something to bear in mind is if you can include that TikTok in a blog post, then that really boosts your chances of being included in AI overviews. So yeah, just something to bear in mind if you're interested in the AI aspect.
Amazing. We got a question here on any tips on how to make a video go viral. So obviously that's what everyone wants at the end of the day is to make a video go viral. I wish I could give you a, secret recipe to the sauce of virality. Unfortunately, there isn't one. But the main thing that I would suggest is to really focus on who your audience is, who you are as a brand, be authentic, and then give a value proposition, because that's something that people really want to see. As Elena mentioned, we had an in-person kind of session regarding this a couple of weeks ago. We gave this session and someone created content off the back of it, where they usually get about 2,000 views per video or less. They use this kind of keyword research strategy that we shared. And then the video that they posted using that got about 35,000 views. So not viral, but pretty large jump in terms of success metrics there. So answering queries, being entertaining and authentic is definitely kind of the way to go. Amazing. We have another question here about always using TikTok's own captioning. And does that affect search? Um, Definitely, I would recommend using TikTok specific kind of editing tools, fonts, its own captioning, because it's the back end of it is reading that, and then that's what it's using to kind of index your content. So if you can use TikTok's own captioning, absolutely do it. If you can edit in CapCut, absolutely do it. If you can use TikTok's own fonts rather than your own branded fonts, absolutely do it. Um, they do they don't say that they're penalizing you, and it's not really a penalization, but they do prioritize their own products over others. So it's just kind of good best practice to do that. Elena, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, as you say, it's important to use TikTok's own tool because they do, even though they don't say it, they do tend to be biased towards it. So, and yeah, it's always important to include captions, like I mentioned earlier. So if it makes it easier for you to use TikTok's own captions, then
Mm,
that's great as well.
yeah, amazing. We have another question here on how to decide which products to focus on TikTok. If you want to keep it specific but have a large catalog of products. This is a really great question and kind of part of the discussion that we had in our live session. When it comes to TikTok, and if you have a really large category of products, I would recommend trying to find your specific niche or hero products if you can. One of our clients is in the kind of like wellness, vitamin space, and that's something that we're really kind of focusing on because, especially with vitamins, there's so many different benefits that it can have. So we have a very specific strategy heroing 2 to 3 of their products when they have, 20, 30 plus, because we can kind of consistently have the same messaging throughout. They're also on TikTok Shop, and all of their products are on TikTok Shop. So we haven't kind of removed those opportunities because why not? But in terms of kind of our TikTok and marketing content, we are specifically heroing certain products there. Um, we have another question here of, do you find that TikTok search has a preference on content formats? So like video versus carousel. Someone here has found that carousels are massively outperforming video. But lots of the examples here was video. So I find that it really kind of depends on what the format is, or sorry, what the content of the format is. So carousels currently, TikTok is really pushing. They're pushing carousels versus videos. But then some of our clients, videos in terms of search always outperform carousels. So I think it really just depends on the value proposition that you're giving. So if you're really seeing that carousels are outperforming video for your product and your messaging, then definitely that's what's working for you guys. I would definitely stick with that content format. I think, as I mentioned before, I think it really just depends on what type of product you have and whether kind of voiceover or piece to camera speaking is kind of needed in order for that additional kind of layer of engagement. Whereas sometimes for carousels, it's nice to just like swipe through. Um, so yeah, I would say go with what's working best for you. But we've seen a mix across our clients. We got another question on, I think the question is TikTok still worth prioritizing or TikTok search when you have such few followers? This person has shared that they have under 2,000 and they haven't really embraced TikTok in around a year, so starting from scratch. I think it really depends on your industry and what you're really hoping to kind of get out of TikTok. Obviously, it's a bit tough without knowing your industry and things like that. If you're interested in chatting more, please scan the QR code, and I'm happy to have a conversation about your individual needs. But there's so much opportunity with TikTok, and if you do kind of start from scratch with a TikTok SEO kind of focus strategy of that kind of evergreen content, you should see results regardless of how many followers you have. So I would still definitely say that it's worth prioritizing, but it depends on kind of what your goals are with TikTok and what you're trying to achieve. One last question, as I'm just conscious of time. Someone just asked to elaborate on TikTok success metrics. So these are those entertainment first metrics. So that's the likes, the shares, the comments, the saves, the reposts, and the watch time. So that's what TikTok, from an entertainment perspective, is really kind of prioritizing. So those are those kind of six or specific success metrics. When then if we're looking at like search success metrics, that's looking at whether you're showing up for searches depending on your keywords, how much of your profile views and content views are coming from search, and whether those kind of queries align with what you were trying to achieve there. Amazing. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate you sharing your Thursday morning with us. As I mentioned before, we will be sharing the recording of this morning. And if you have any comments or questions, or want to kind of have a chat about how we can help you at all with TikTok SEO for discovery or just your TikTok strategy in general, please scan the QR code, and someone from our team will reach out to you. Amazing. Thank you all and have a wonderful, wonderful day.